Feminism and education are not new academic fields, but new methodologies, underpinned by posthumanism and new materialism, are changing research in these areas. This two-day conference has been organised to mobilise, exchange and transfer these ideas. It's being held at the UCL Institute of Education and Middlesex University.
Well, there's some really great and important methodologies that are happening, and we wanted to sort of capture what was going on, have an opportunity to talk with other people in the area. And it was really a coming together of people that were more established and then some students to have some generative conversations. And really, we're facing a lot of difficulties in the university and the academy. There's a lot of competition, individualism, neoliberalism, and this is really trying to collaborate and have some solidarity around the issues and the politics and the methodologies and the theories that we're really inspired by. I'm really inspired by post-human feminism, as articulated most recently maybe by Rosie Braidotti, but who brings together a long genealogy of work, kind of trying to decenter the humanist man, decenter phallogocentric thinking and thought, which privileges a particular kind of white, Eurocentric, male vision, action in the world, and trying to revalue the relations and the agencies and the importance of seeing all of the other things in the world and the sort of patterns of exploitation and trying to turn those on their heads.
I work at the Cardiff School of Social Science.
Each of the participants was asked to bring a gift along to the conference.
I've been very privileged over the last few years.
I opened up some of the sessions by talking about the concept of the potluck, which was, in my context, I'm Canadian from the west coast of Canada, and Indigenous culture has this notion of the potluck where you get together and you give back to the community and each other through gifts. Literally, it can be through, we talk about having a potluck, like everybody bring a dish of food over. And so it's just a very simple but important way of like transforming in the academic context like a performativity and performance of like I know the knowledge, I'm the expert, to what can you share and how can we build upon what we know.
So I've brought felt, well it's not felt yet, I've brought pieces of wool because I'm interested in thinking about felting as a research methodology. So I'm drawing from Deleuze and Guattari, and they think about felting as sort of different from weaving. So when you weave something, you can take the strands apart. But when you felt, the strands become intertwined in a way that's impossible to disentangle. So I'm trying to theorize this sort of as a methodology to use within educational research or research writ large. I'm hoping to sort of generate some intensity or force. So as a collective of researchers, feminists, activists, theorists, artists, I don't know, I'm just sort of interested in what kind of intensities and forces we can take forward after we get our bodies together.
I'm really interested in the ontologies and epistemologies which underpin new material feminism, and I think there are a lot of really interesting people here, from PhD students right through to professors, who are doing lots and lots of really diverse and interesting experiments. And I think it's the idea of experiment which really excites me, because I think I know the theory really well. What I'm interested in is thinking about, so how do we enact some of this through our research practices? And one of the things I'm doing is I'm co-editing a book on post-humanist research practices, and that's got quite a few of the people who are here in the book. So it's great to meet them in person and talk through things in a lot more detail. My gift is an interest in how bodies and objects interact together with the materiality of spaces. So that's what I want to explore, but I want to explore through my gift how to make a feminist political intervention into the spaces, the institutional spaces of the university.
My name is Hilde Taguchi. I'm a professor and director at Stockholm University.
And I think one of the things that, as Jessica kind of alluded to, that we're stumbling kind of around, is this notion of kind of doing media studies but starting at kind of the level of the kind of embodied person and their kind of experiences rather than the media text.
My gift was around identity and the complexities of identity as a black feminist, and working with black girls and where they fit in this complexity around materialism.
My name's Camilla. I'm a PhD student at Goldsmiths University.
My name's Jessie and I'm a PhD student at UCL.
Okay, so my gift is a problem, really, a problem gift. I'm currently at a real crossroads with my research, and I'm seeking a way to understand the experiences of the young women that I'm researching with in a way that goes beyond a discursive, very human language-rooted framework to reach and touch and grapple with the way these young women's deeply embodied experiences shape their interactions and shape the way they're institutionally positioned. And I thought coming here would be a great way to kind of reach towards that a bit more. This is certainly the first kind of group, collective, exciting, crazy, everyone together experience I've had that's reaching towards those kind of ways of thinking.
I think I brought more of a problem as well and a question, because I believe in sort of social science always needing to begin with a question. So my question was basically, how can Deleuzian and Guattarian philosophy actually move us towards post-Cartesian understanding of data and the experience of participants? So it's it was more to do with how to use it as an analytical tool to ask different questions about what people experience instead of just framing it in sociological typologies and so on.
So quite similar, looking towards the something that's missing, and we're not. Well, I certainly am not sure what it is yet. But
so it's through this what we've attempted to do is to bring together what we're considering our arts-based methods and putting them within academic conventions of chapters, published papers and so on, and having them taken seriously as valid knowledges. And it's not apologising for the arts-based method, it's not explaining, decoding. That is just as valid and as theorised and rigorous as the academic prose that sits around it.
Aggregate quite a lot of data, and then also we're trying to collect qualitative data, and of course what I'm interested in is the affectivity of people using online social media to speak back to a range of different experiences.
Yeah, I arrived from Australia yesterday and I came for this event specifically. Mainly it was just a fantastic opportunity, I thought, to not only work a bit more with Jessica but also of course engage with some of the people here that I already knew and that wanted to obviously engage with more. And being in Australia, you sort of have to be prepared to travel always. But I think it's a fantastic opportunity, yeah. The gift that I brought was to use a research example from a new study that I'm doing to share data for the first time from that project, but to ask some questions about what this material relational methodology might enable, what it might enable us to animate in our research, but also in our ethico-political aims as feminist researchers. So I've been trying to look at, as many other people have here, ways of not only embodying theory but embodying methodology as well, so beyond the discursive only or textual only that interviews often entail. So I still use the interview method, but I've been trying to use visual methods as well, so asking participants to bring photos of themselves from previously to introduce a time-based sort of aspect to the interview, so to sort of open up the temporal aspects beyond just the immediate snapshot that you get from an interview often. And so maybe it was more of questions I was wanting to ask and feedback I was maybe selfishly wanting to get instead of such a gift. Maybe I brought more questions, but yeah, definitely the first intensive event that is set up to be so creative and yeah, to have so many potentials come from it and be quite, directed as well, which I think is really great. We'll get so much out of it for that, I think.
A series of workshops are designed to explore and analyse research methodologies.
The thinking is that the themes here work across different types of research approach, different types of method and different types of data that we're all working with. So there's a way in which this is quite a broad discussion that kind of perhaps everybody will be situated in. Okay, so inside the research assemblage, we're taking you on, we're all going on together, a micropolitical odyssey from aggregation to methodological line of flight. Okay, that's the plan. We'll just frame it briefly in a Deleuze-Guattarian ontology. We'll talk briefly, we'll just set up, outline the event assemblage, then the research assemblage. Then we'll start to talk about the micropolitics of social research. Then we'll think about how we can work back from the affects to look critically at research methods and designs. Then we'll think about how we can forwards engineer them to get to somewhere that we want to end up more. And then we'll think about how we might be wanting to contribute as social scientists, or well, as researchers anyway, to the Royal or the Minor Science projects.
Okay, so we are exploring the idea of event and research assemblages through taking a potential research event, which is the kind of the series of flows and happenings within a sex education class, and almost plugging this event into different research techniques or machines and seeing how they clash and collide and what happens when you find a particular way into that event.
After the smaller group work, there's whole group discussion.
So for me, what I found difficult about the exercise was it asking me to do something different to what I might normally do? Was it just giving me another language to place it in?
I like the question of what is the method we are, generating. We don't really have words for it. What is this thing that we're doing? What does it do? But what do we do with what it does? And so I'm asking that question about art. So people are saying, don't just look at art and do all it. What does art do? But I want to know what we do with what it does.
If you do an analytical work on news, once you remove that piece into something here, the whole thing is going to change. It's not like those things can't really be separated, because once you separate it, you've got something completely different. And you've only got difference, in fact, I think is what you would say. So but I also want to say that when I was doing it, I could see this as a really nice pedagogical exercise to work on with students, so we can see how methodology and how we look at things does shape the research, including the question.
Most of the workshops involve actively trying out new methodologies.
We've been outside and we've taken pictures of the landscape. So what we're suggesting is that you might like to take pictures of something, landscape or whatever, with your iPhones, iPads, whatever you've got, any kind of device really. And then what we did was they had chosen those landscapes for very specific reasons. So they were very much talking back to the documentary that I spoke about yesterday. And so again, the images are layering. Some of them onto their minds, if you like, onto their heads. Some of them onto their feet where they walk. So we've taken the body and the parts of the body and reclaimed the place as a beautiful place.
We're looking at different projection techniques and how to make connections between different affects in the environment, between people and between things. At the moment people are taking pictures on their iPhones. It's interesting because what it's doing is inviting us to explore different modalities and hopefully we can think about how we might use that in ways which might be interesting to think about things and people.
I was doing this earlier. Go up and down the body. How does this feel? Go down. Can you feel that?
Yeah,
There's a lot of potential in this, right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
You can see how you would combine it with movements as well.
Yeah.
So you can really have some fun with this, depending on what you decide to project. Sorry, it's bright for your eyes.
This workshop began with 12 minutes of meditation.
The reason I use the sound meditation is to help be present and think otherwise and get outside of permissible narratives or the storylines that we typically tell ourselves when we hear things. And I use that so when I am going to work with data or do some research, like have a school visit or interview someone or work in a focus group, that I can try to work outside of the permissible narratives that Derrida and Spivak would talk about.
Let go of the breath and focus on the body sensation.
I think more about data as or research like presentations, representations, not as like academic publishers changing. So I'm thinking about installations, multimedia releases. Like there's all kinds of things happening just for this conference. But that people might get 3D printed avatars of data. They might have a sonic avatar. There might be graphs and visuals. It might be like MTV, there might be like video. That basically, they could be completely different. And I also thought that what's happened in research and when we think about new methodology is it seemed like it was always like, well, we have a new theory or a new way of reading. That would be new. But that the process of research itself stayed very much the same. Like we still collected data in a lot of the same ways, and that we still really represented in a lot of the same ways, even though I would say that the representation has had more experimentation than the collection process. So that.
Anna Hickey Moody's workshop involved dance.
My gift was a dance workshop that was a way of generating affect. So the academics participated in a workshop that made dance texts that had particular feelings, and it was a methodology for capturing affect. Academics made a movement that represented control and represented fear, so they had two different movements, and they worked with these movements on small and large levels, and built small dances. So each participant made a solo, and then they taught the solo to another participant, and then they made a duet that was built from the two solos joined together and included certain choreographic features like low, medium and high levels, a run, a roll, a reach, a weight share. And so the dances were original dances that the participants had devised themselves. But once they were structured through the choreographic principles that the participants were asked to layer in, they had feelings of their own, and they were drawing on participants' life histories, their experiences, their feeling of their bodies, so that they drew on a range of non-conventional data sources, but they also generated a text that had feelings, that was read through feelings, so it was in some ways bigger than the narratives that the participants might have had about it. So the materiality of the text had an affect or a story that was out of the control of the participants in some ways as well. So we were looking at how the dance texts sort of had a meaning of their own that was bigger than the individuals that had made the dance texts.
Let your body flow over your hips, and your hips make circles facing your feet.
Well, I mean, what I found really constructive is the kind of way this group has kind of come together and coalesced as a a network or a community or whatever, without people having to lay out their stall beyond the gift thing, which I thought worked really well. Yeah, I liked all the workshops. Maybe I liked Emma and Gabrielle's one on making the films, particularly because I can see how I would, kind of steal their ideas and use it.
It's been very exciting. It's had a lovely sort of worlding sensibility about it, very inclusive, really nice sort of willingness and, I guess, sensibility of belonging, I suppose.
I don't know if it's happened with you, but I have found how other people have actually addressed it, and now I don't see it as missing. I can see that other people have definitely thought about that problem and have provided sort of very creative responses to it.
I think that's the great thing, seeing that you are in the same boat as someone else. You're not the first person to have felt, I don't know how to articulate this. This doesn't make sense yet, and to see that other people have certainly gone through that journey and, like you say, found very creative and lively and engaging ways to answer it.
I think it was amazing, especially the second day, because we left it open and experimental, and then I think people felt free to kind of engage in different ways, and the body and dance workshop was really my favorite because I've been waiting to see the kind of things that Anna Hickey-Moody sets in motion for quite a long time, and to be able to participate, it felt really joyous and freeing and fabulous, really. So yeah, I hope that it's been a generative space for people to share and explore and discover things.
The conference ended with a planning session that looked forward to the future.
We're building a network. We're going to have a Facebook group, which is actually a really good capability to enable us to share. We're going to be applying for some funding. We're going to be going to some conferences. And, I'm just really hoping that the vision of what this is going to flow out and materialize and create some new things.